Hi, everyone. For the people that don't know me, my name is Noemi, and I'm an Italian UX designer. I've been growing professionally in various startups in Berlin, and now I'm happily building a smooth experience for the users of Sofa Tutor, which is a German e-learning platform which helps children and young adults to learn beyond school. But this is just secondary because tonight I'm only your host, and all of you, you're my guests. So I'm about to let you in my big, but of course virtual, UXDX living room situated tonight in Berlin, and more precisely in Neukölln. So take your seat and be ready to enjoy the conversation that we'll be having around the talks that you have been watching during the day. So the topic that we're going to dive deeper into tonight is the following: aligning team objectives through the strategic value of design. So the title is actually huge, and it can be broken down into several concept, phenomenon, keywords that I'm sure are tickling your brain. So teams, alignment, objectives, strategy, design. I'm sure that you work with them on a daily basis. But why are we even speaking about them today? I think there are no manuals that can tell us precisely what to do for making our product team work at its best. And the good thing about the UXDX community is that they can work as a vector for giving the possibility to the people to share their successful experiences. And for me, there is no better way to learn rather than looking at practical experiences of the people who work tirelessly on making process better and even finding their own ways. So if you're here, it means that you're curious and you also want to try out new things. And that's just great. So whenever you find some quotes which are enlightening or approaches that you would like to try also for yourself, don't forget to share and also participate to our core value. With your team, with your network, online, and why not also use our hashtag, which is UXDX community. So for us to see that the seed that we planted has been growing together with your thoughts. So I would like to make sure that the speakers are actually here. And of course, I want as a first thing to thank them because they brought very nice topics tonight. And also for the dedication that they put every day into changing the team's behaviors towards constant innovation. So while you people in the living room are preparing for asking them questions, let me pass the mic. Emily, do you want to start?
Hi, yes, I can start. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Emily. I saw my name was spelled with 2 R's. That was fun, like a thing. I liked it. I work at Outfittery as a senior product manager, and I've been with the company for 6 years actually. So it's a long journey. I have not done product for that whole time, but for the last 3.5 years, I've been doing product management, and I focus mainly on the internal tool landscape that we have. So I don't work customer facing, but that also means that everything customer facing goes through my tools to our stylists. So I need to be a part of the whole journey, and that is also why I very much enjoy my workplace at the moment.
Okay, hi everyone. So, thanks for having me. My name is Sören von Sebelin, and I basically started my journey at Good Game Studios quite some time ago, and I started there as a producer and project manager, only to find in the end my inner nerd about productness. And since then I'm calling myself product nerd, and hardly find any other topics that I can be as let's say as nerdy about as I am. So I started working for a short time at 1&1 as a technical product manager. And shortly after that, I started in beautiful Berlin at Sofa Tutor. That's around 2 years ago now. And I was mainly responsible with my team for the navigation, basically to get the user, which are pupils at Sofa Tutor, as you can imagine from the description from Noemi, are mostly small kids. So that was quite an interesting challenge to figure out how to navigate kids to the content that they really want to see. So I would pass the mic over to Soumya, Miss Guru.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Soumya, and currently I'm working as a freelance Android engineer. Just recently, I started since more than a month, but I have over a decade of IT experience and working in big companies and startups. And finally, now I made the switch. I'm also the founder of Coder-B, an inclusive network that teaches programming to women and minorities in IT. It started as a small group which spun out of another women's group, and now we are more than 400 members. And I'm quite happy to continue this journey along with my, as usual, Android engineering. So yeah, and pair programming is one of my favorite topics. That's why I'm advocating this. And I also see this as a very uncommon topic in IT, in Berlin at least. And I also did some research around, and I found that it's not so common at all, which is why now I want to talk about it and tell people why it's fun to do pair programming. And maybe I can pass the mic to Giacomo. I don't know, I'm sorry.
Giacomo, yeah, no problem. Thanks, Soumya. Okay, hi, everybody. First of all, hi, Noemi. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here today. And greetings to all, my fellow speakers and everybody who's connected today. So yeah, I'm Giacomo. I'm from Rome. This is where I'm talking to you from right now. And I'm a UI designer. I work for Accenture, which is, the big consulting company. And I've been part of a team for a couple years now, working on a design system for some of the company's apps. So that's more or less the core of what I brought in with my speech today, and talking about sort of our approach to the project and the things that I learned while doing so. It was the first time for me working on a design system, so I learned a lot of stuff by doing it, and it was a bit of an eye-opener from both a UX and UI point of view. So yeah, that'll be it.
Nice. So now that you all introduced yourself, I would say that I could already jump in with some questions. What do you think? All right. So I have some questions for you that came to me spontaneously while watching your talks. So even though aligning team is the core interest of the initiative that you've been pursuing, I can imagine that bringing these revolutionary approaches might have also caused a pushback reaction from the rest of the team, or maybe from your product stakeholders. So I wanted to investigate a bit more this aspect with each of you. For example, Sören, you mentioned that before the transition to product discovery, stakeholders were mapped to the teams. How do you work with stakeholders together now after the discovery environment is in place?
That's a very good question. So yeah, so we had in the very beginning, just for everyone who probably didn't watch my video. So I was talking about the team structure and probably actually the transition from team responsibilities, so more like components that you're responsible for, the transition to missions, and also we were responsible for several stakeholders. And actually, So to the major question in the very beginning that you asked, the whole transition was actually perceived very positively in general from the stakeholders that we had. We were very open, and we tried to tell them what it's all about. But what did not change drastically was the way how, let's say, who was mapped to the teams. So we still had, and I can mostly talk about my team in this case now, we had like 3 teams, and each team managed the stakeholders a little bit differently. In my team, it was mostly 2 different cases. We had case number 1, where we had kind of like different goals, and the stakeholder needed us to basically achieve their goals, but they were not entirely our goals. So we kind of we didn't manage to change that drastically, and that's like a long process, right? So we were in the last 2 years, we didn't change something drastically there, but always kept like the usual stakeholder and product team relationship. We also had a second case, and that was, if you ask me, the winning case is where actually the stakeholders were very well aligned to our teams, and that was super easy then to basically integrate the whole stakeholders, like the stakeholders into the discovery process. So we actually learned together, and we came to solutions together. We experimented together and learned together basically how to solve those problems. And that was definitely also the winning case, and I think also way to go for the future.
Nice, super nice. So now I have a question for Emily on the same line. So what type of outputs does your team have now with your storytelling method? Did you get any pushbacks? How did you sell them on it? Who's the potential enemy of the hero of the story?
Where should we start? So the benefits that have come out of this is that they do know the customers, the heroes, a lot better. So they have an understanding, which makes the grooming sessions a lot more smoother, and things just run a little bit more easy. And I mean, I think the biggest pushback comes from myself, because sometimes it's just super easy to be like, can you just do this? And then because you're stressed and you have too much to do, because this is an investment of time and energy, right? So you need to, if you want to tell stories, you need time, and you need to make sure that you do it with effort. As a general, nobody really have a pushed back on it from my team, not stakeholders either. But I think also it's important as a product manager that you also are able to change your language for whom you're speaking to, and also are able to adapt what part of the story that you highlight for certain users, or certain, for example, your developers might want to hear a lot about something else versus what part of the story you need to tell to your stakeholders. So you need to be able to adapt that as well. But for me, it's been helpful because the team knows the hero, and it just makes it a lot easier to move forward.
That's very interesting. Giacomo, now I have a question for you. So with design system in place, or at least your process, how did stakeholders react when you were trying to stay consistent to a brand? But as we know, everybody has different need on the design. So how did you handle requests for exceptions, for example?
Okay, thanks for the question. That's an excellent question. Okay, so in my case, the stakeholders that I deal with are other product teams within the company that decide to adopt, our design system to create their products that they'll sell to clients. Basically, that's sort of the workflow. So in general, design systems are not a new thing. They've been around for some years, so it's not like something so revolutionary at the moment that no one else knows what we're talking about. People are more or less aware of them, so they know that they have at their disposition a certain number of components and guidelines, and that they can use them in a certain way. So that's what they kind of expect when they start working on a project that uses a design system, which realistically, it can't work for everything. You have to consider the fact that there will probably be some exceptions. And so at the moment, we're in a phase of the project where we're still sort of starting out, even though we've been working on it for a while. So we've released it probably, I don't know, a couple of months ago, and just internally. So even though we have set up a documentation portal where people can go and kind of, gain knowledge about the contents of the library and how to use the components, and how to build products with certain patterns and templates and so forth. We're still at a level at which me and other, my other teammates can directly follow the designers that are using the libraries. So, if someone comes to us and they're like, okay, I need something that I cannot find in a library, the first thing we do is we usually try to figure out if there is a way to do, to meet that need without having to invent something new. So, we kind of try to rethink with the designers about a certain functionality, and if it can be built in another way by using what we already have, because that would be obviously, win-win situation, because, if you use what you have at your disposition, it just makes the work faster and easier and cheaper, especially. So if that doesn't work, the next step is we try to figure out if the new need is something we can actually bring in to our design system. So if it's something that has value and that we can add it as an official component, it can be anything, it can be a component, a pattern, an icon, a style, whatever. There's different levels of of building blocks in there. And if we finally reach the conclusion that it's something that we don't think would actually fit within the general structure of the design system, what we do is we treat it as sort of a one-off component. I think the term that's used is usually snowflake, because it's something unique and that kind of stands on its own. And in that case, we just bounce it back to the product team that's building the project. So they sort of deal with it as their own part of the project. So it doesn't come into the library. And other more established design systems, they have this kind of dichotomy between official components and community components. So there's going to be like an official list of things in the library, and then all the people that use that library or that design system will create their own components, templates, patterns, or whatnot, and those are kind of known as community components, and anyone can use them. So eventually, if we consistently keep on growing with the project, that's probably a realistic outcome of the situation. But for now, we're just kind of playing it by ear.
It's very interesting that out of exceptions, you can actually create a sub design system called community design system.
Yeah, it's kind of like a crowdsourced design system. That would be the general idea. I think it's great. When you get to that point where a lot of the things in the design system have actually been created by a third party, it means that that it's working well and that people use it and they get involved. So hopefully.
Definitely. Thanks a lot, Jack. And now I have a question for Soumya. Have you experienced any downside of the practice of pair programming? So how do you think this practice is enhancing the transparency on the development challenges with the rest of the product team?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I do cover in my talk promoting this, or even asking people to implement this is quite challenging already, mostly because of the certain myths that are involved around this pair programming concept, because most of them, as they see two people working on the same thing, rather than two people parallelly working on things, it feels like, so you're halving like the developer productivity. So people think it's just half of the productivity and you're not using to full potential, but it's actually the opposite. 1 + 1 is actually more than 2 because you can complement each other. So this is what is one of the challenges, to convince people or startups and clients to actually implement this and kind of introduce this concept. And when it's done right, according to certain techniques used correctly, then I think developers also embrace this, as in when, like I say, this is a skill that can be learned. So soft skills are completely, I think, are undervalued and underestimated in IT. And it's all about technical skills, right? So, but I think I place a lot of value in this, mostly because certain qualities like asking for help is already challenging for developers. So the biggest time, or the time you spend being stuck, is way more if you're doing something alone. And if you have somebody to fall back, it's easy to navigate through problems by talking. So getting unstuck is the first thing that a programmer has to learn, to not be getting lost in the rabbit hole. So that's why I think a pair works more effectively, even doing like simplest of the problems or like the complex of problems. And that is the reason, because there's somebody constantly reviewing what somebody's writing. This is the reason that the code quality improves, and there'll be 2 steps of reviewing. That means it's pretty ironclad, I would say, as long as people know what they're doing. So yeah, like I said, asking for help is quite challenging for developers already. So you would see some pushback from developers to say, no, I want to work on, I need my productive focus time, kind of a thing. But actually 2 people focusing together is way more productive. That is my argument. And yeah, like the third thing is, yeah, like basically developers, as long as they're willing and they learn the proper tools, then yeah, like use the techniques correctly, because 2 people can also be using these techniques wrongly, and there could be conflicts. It's not easy to always pair with somebody, and that's why it's important to rotate pairs. And coming to like how this could improve the productivity in a team or effectiveness in a team is, firstly, it improves collective code ownership, which means there won't be one single person being a subject matter expert, or like the superhero of the team who everybody goes to. So that knowledge silos is no more there. That means there's more equality in knowledge and understanding. So because you're pairing with new person every day, you get to know your colleagues. That means you also know which, basically the team morale improves, because you're continuously interacting, speaking, and you have to work through problems together. So definitely it boosts, like the biggest thing that I know developers who love this concept tell me is that it's more fun to do something. Like it's like, it's nice to play with people. It's like more turning work into play, right? Like it's nice to solve a puzzle with somebody rather than doing it yourself. So that I think is the biggest benefit. But when it comes to investment, like if you look at the side of the coin and say for startups or clients, why would they have to like go with this? Because it seems like it might be more expensive. But studies also show that this concept, once used properly, improves code quality hugely, up to 22% less defects and bugs, and sustainable. As you grow, it has to be sustainable. Otherwise, like there'll be technical debt, which will cost you way more later. It's like building on top of broken stuff. So yeah, basically that's what I think. It improves the overall team quality, product quality, teamwork, communication, all these soft skills which are important. And you will learn through feedback loops. That means the team is in a very healthy condition. Like you will face friction and conflicts, but that's why there are feedback loops to actually overcome these. And because you have to do this continuously, you're already mentally prepared to actually solve these problems. So yeah.
That's a very interesting topic, and also the audience has many questions about this. So if you don't mind, I will already address you one question that came. So do you enforce strict driver, navigator, and time handovers, or do people do what they think is best while pair programming?
Yeah, the second one. So yeah, I think until honestly, nobody does so much research until they actually think this is important or fun, or you have to give like a special importance to this topic. That's when you have to see how good it is to actually learn what are the techniques that could be used on an everyday basis. But mostly people don't know because it feels like, oh, two people should just naturally come together and start writing code. But no, that doesn't happen. There's so much of things going on. You're making decisions, and there's some pride attached to it, saying I want to be like, you are showing somebody how much you know about the topic. Basically, that's your core expertise that lies on. So that is a bit harder. And that's why I think basically you have to keep rotating pairs also for the same reason. Like navigator and driver has to keep rotating. So you don't do some certain things like keyboard hogging. Like some people keep using the keyboard like 3 hours a day or 4 hours a day without changing this. So it's like people feel like, oh, I'm writing something means I'm programming, otherwise it's not. But programming requires both strategic and tactical modes. So that's why it's important to continuously do this time management. Also, like I said, mini retros is another thing. If people do not use this is what I stress on also in my talk, that this is something I also never knew, that mini retro at the end of the session is crucial to for pair development. It's called pair development. That means you talk about what went well and what went wrong in just last 5 minutes. And you also give each other compliments about some impressive things somebody suggested or did. So I think these things are a bit missing. I feel like because I've paired with a lot of people, I know that we could have done better. Or first of all, another thing was like, somebody like a senior developer, it's really hard to, like, if they don't want to pair with somebody and just write code, you can't really, like, when you're mid-level or junior, you can't force people to do something that they don't want to. So, but by perseverance and showing people it's all about psychological safety, I think. Showing people that you're nice and you appreciate them is crucial in pair programming, because these are important qualities, I think.
Yeah, it's super interesting. And personally, I'm very interested into this topic. And I would also like to ask the other panelists if you actually do like pairing work or pair programming with the rest of your team, if it's a good practice and you can also put a word into it.
I could probably start. It's always difficult with questions for everyone, right? So I'm just thinking of, for example, I was actually with you, Noemi. I think one of the biggest success of pair, I don't know, like pair working or something that we've had in the discovery process for Sofa Tutor in our team was actually as we started, kickstarted basically something like the opportunity tree, where we basically were standing together for hours discussing and going through data, and that was something that I also always valued a lot. And I think the output in the end was amazing, and we actually even had the perfect, let's say, perfect comparison to I think around half a year later. I did it all by myself. And then Noemi looked at it, and you kind of did it all by yourself as well. So we kind of, and then we merged it, and we realized, okay, the result was like far from where we could have been if we just sat together and do it together. So that was like probably something that I can relate to. I don't know about the others.
Very honored by this, but can you explain maybe to the rest of the crew what is an opportunity tree, and why do you think that it's good practice to be done, UX designer and product owner?
Yeah, sure. So the opportunity tree is basically something that is helping the team to align its actions according to a wanted outcome, like a desired outcome, which is like from a normal tree, like decision tree, where you start with the root, which is the desired outcome, and then you start in the next level with the opportunities, like things that you could, like opportunities that you can take to basically reach that desired outcome. And then there is a next level where you already start thinking about ideas and solutions. And after those solutions, next level is thinking about experiments to iterate over. And what we did, Noemi and I, as a team, basically in this case, we paired together over the first, over actually only the opportunity part. So we had the desired outcome that was clear, it was given from the management, that was the mission that we had. And then we had so many insights and so many data that it is always you're always biased when you're going through this data yourself. So it's always good to go together through this and basically kind of like find the core essence of it and figure out together what type of opportunities do you really have and can you really grasp. Because if you do it all by yourself, you're always biased and you're always going in one specific direction. So like this, what happened is that we had a big variety of good opportunities, and it was based on good data and good insights, and the team alignment afterwards, like we talked with the team about it, and all together we decided on, I think, like one branch of this opportunity tree to focus on, and was a big success. So that was, in my opinion, really, really cool.
I can only agree with that. It has been also my favorite collaboration and pairing, not programming, but designing, let's say, designing the product. Emily, do you have a sparring partner that you are pairing with and that you like to work with, and it's mostly the fruitful collaboration that you always prefer?
I mean, I think that nobody should work alone ever. You get tunnel vision and you don't know what you're doing. I love when my team pair up by themselves. I don't even have to tell them to. I also very much enjoy when I have back-end and front-end developers actually sitting down and really digging into problems and trying to find solutions together. And I mean, in the world of product, I think that I couldn't do my job without my other product managers or having discussions with my team or anything. So, I mean, my job is to get the best out of everybody else. So, I mean, pair programming, I would love only pair programming, but that's not really possible. But I think that's something that everybody should encourage as much as possibly can. Yeah. But I get also the hard times with it, where it's like it's time consuming and all of these kind of myths around it. So it's difficult, and then also sometimes it's not actually efficient because it's just like I just need to do this. But then we also try to do, if we don't have time for pair programming, we always try to do knowledge sessions, and also if we have spike tickets, we try to share them properly within the team when we have time. And also, as I mentioned, having these kickoff meetings when you have new initiatives or new things that you would like to do, these are also times, it's brilliant times when you can get so much new information out. So no man is an island.
That's really true. All right, now we shift our attention a little back to design system because we have a question from the audience for Giacomo. And that's the following. So design systems are getting some bad press for being huge investment that get ignored at the end. How do you ensure that your design system are being used in your organization?
Okay, that's an excellent question. Thanks. Okay, well, I can talk, from my specific experience. This is, my first time working on a design system, so I can't really dive into what other companies are doing. But in my case, what we're building is meant to be used by products built with a specific business platform within the company. So, once it's done and it's out of there, and it's out there, we are 100% sure that, things that are being built with that platform will use the design system. In general, though, I get the point that that this question is making because, building a design system is in fact a huge investment. It takes a lot of time. It's a really, really big process, and it can take can take many months, and so it's expensive. But the ultimate goal is to make sure that the things that you're pulling out that are made with it are consistent. So you're making a series of products that follow certain guidelines and that are consistent with what the company wants to tell, basically, and also that they're quicker to make because you're thriving for consistency, and you're thriving for sort of a faster workflow, basically, because you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you're creating something new. You have at your disposition something ready to go with certain structural patterns that you would have to invent from zero if not. But I understand that what you asked me before about exceptions, that is a big turnoff sometimes, because people feel kind of like they're encaged when they have to use a design system. I understand that. It kind of limits creative freedom, if we can call it like that, if if it's approached like a limitation. But I think that it's important to bring everyone on board to the fact that it's not a limitation. It's actually a tool that can really help you, because as I said, you don't have to reinvent everything from zero. You have stuff at your disposition, but also, you can build on it and just scale it up as much as possible. So I think that's sort of the message that should be sent out there when trying to get people involved and trying to get people to use a UI library or design kit or a design system in general. But yeah, within my company, it's a huge company, and there's so many branches and sort of platforms and different tools that are used, and I see there's so many different visual languages used on all of these different sort of internal tools. And I think that eventually being able to have one sort of single source of truth for all of the things that are used within a company is just a very, very powerful way of telling your story and of communicating something. But it takes time, especially if a company is big and there's a lot of different sort of teams and groups within it. So yeah.
Yeah, from my perspective, I can tell you that all the time that I joined a company which already had a design system in place, it took me like 1 second to understand how to actually enter into their mindset and design for the product. So I fully agree with what you said. And now I'm curious to know from developer perspective, Soumya, do you work or have you ever worked with a design system? And what do you think, like from your perspective, this can be a tool for team alignment?
So design system, like particularly, what do you mean? I don't understand this term of design system in the developer perspective.
Jack, you want to give?
Maybe I can jump in. Yeah. Well, usually, you know, when you have a design system in place, you have design assets and you have code assets. So everything you design, you know, 100% for sure that is backed by code. Mm-hmm. So you know it just makes the phase of the handoff phase much easier for both you know the visual designers that are working on a project and the developers that are working on it. So for example, in our case, you know, we work very closely with me and you know the design team work very closely with the development team, because everything that we put out you know has to be approved by them and has to be built by them as well. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, now I know that, and I forgot your question. Sorry.
I wanted to ask you if you ever worked with a design system and how it is for you, like as a developer, and help for team alignment.
Yeah, I mean, it's a regular thing that developers have to work with designers all the time, and they put out certain, you know, there's different kind of design schemes or frameworks, for instance. So like when it comes to Android, now, okay, material design is quite common for all the, I think, yeah, platforms, but still, not every platform has frameworks which would support this. Even Android is supporting this only, you know, like couple of versions before. Like basically it has to be backed up by also your whole framework. So if that's why we undergo a lot of version changes and we have to interact with designers so closely, I think, mostly because what like how Gokumo was saying before, what we don't want to reinvent the wheel and start building something from scratch, which we know is not a regular design pattern, because if the pattern is not there, that means that it should not be used. Rather than building that, you have to tell the designer that this is not a standard pattern, and tell them that we have another probably something similar, you know, or what I do is usually I show, because I use my Android device as well, I see patterns and I give them like a screenshot or of some other app. So basically, I think, yeah, it's possible that a designer's perspective is quite creative, but we need to fit that with a development perspective, and easiest is the top most important, because making a little thing which is not default could be costing a lot if it's not told before. So that's what, like, communication becomes very important throughout the team, being aligned on like keeping product managers in line as to like to build this, it will take so many hours, or to build a native component using something would be way easier and simpler, because you don't have to redo a lot of work, which the framework does for you. So it's all about communication again, how well you can communicate with designers. But sometimes it's hard to like it's like a sweet spot, I think, because sometimes you have to also give designers the power to be creative, but also you should make sure that you don't spend so much energy on something that's not providing too much value. So like basically that's why we also have product to align us if we have like you know, conflict with time or energy efforts. So yeah, I think it's always good to have, like, in sprint planning, all this sorted out, or even beforehand. I like that you can iterate over this way before with designers, and then you can always figure it out.
It's cool to consider also the design system, a UI agreement between like the look and feel of the platform from designer perspective, and then agreed with developers on how it should function and look on a platform.
Developers always make sure that your head stays on your shoulders. Just fly too high.
That's true. Sometimes we also need some small limitations to our broad creativity. So I have one small little question for whoever wants to answer it, and the topic is strategy. Because I think strategy plays a big role into all the initiative that you're bringing to our knowledge today. So how do you think storytelling, product discovery, putting in place a design system and enhancing programmer collaboration can help narrowing the focus of the product strategy? Who wants to answer this question? Emily, do you have an idea of how to?
So patiently waiting for someone else to answer it. No. From a storytelling perspective, you will be able to align a lot easier on the strategy, yes. If you have the story that you want to tell, essentially the story could be even the mission of the whole company, and then it's very easy to break it down into the pieces you want to do. I am not sure that I would start with the storytelling part. I think I would start in for coming up with a complete product strategy. I think I would probably talk about the hero, the customer, from the beginning, and then kind of break it down from that point, rather than the whole complexity of the story we want to tell as a company. Not sure that answers the question, but I mean it's applicable. Strategy is super difficult. I mean it's really difficult to if from everybody I've heard, the different companies, different strategies. It's difficult because it's about aligning and from the truth that none of us are the heroes of the stories. This is then difficult for people to also accept because everybody wants to be the hero rather than actually seeing the customer in that light. So I think the job that we can do, regardless if we're a designer or a developer or a product manager, I think what we do is that we help out to align with bringing the customer in focus and always bringing him back. That's what I think we can do.
I can also jump in there. So especially you, Emily, you even had in your talk and also now in your question again, what you also said is something that even I referred to in my talk as well, is basically the talking about the why. You call it just differently. We call it Discovery Lab. You call it differently. And I think that's actually, if you ask me, like that is probably even what I see as the core reference of what the team and what the product team basically does as product discovery, is constantly talking about the why. And when you talk about the why, you automatically ask yourself, okay, is this going into the right direction? Well, because if the answer is somehow awkward or doesn't feel like it's going into the right direction, you're not going to do it. So that's why I believe that, because Noemi also asked about product discovery, I think actually product discovery, especially in terms of the product teamwork, this is the exact task, let's say. So you got to figure out, when you have a strategy, when you have a mission or a vision, or however you want to call it, is that, are we running into the right direction? And and everything that we apply to a product discovery, is it a reporting process? Is it I don't know, like how you make your grooming meetings, in which direction is the management talking about strategy or visions, and how and who is talking about it in which area. It's all about getting this online and onto the strategy and figuring out the right thing to do basically for our customers and not for ourselves, which I gotta say, yes, Emily, you're so right about this. Yeah. So I think like if I would want to pin it down, I mean, obviously one major important part of product discovery is to actually have a strategy. Without, it's pretty hard to do it, and you're probably going in the wrong direction and you don't even know about it. But when you have one, that's it. That's your major goal on whatever hierarchy level or abstraction level it is. Like when you have a strategy, that's your thing to do.
Yeah, I think you really nailed my point on the strategic value of all the innovation that you want to bring to the table with your initiatives. So thank you very much. And I would say that we are really close to the end of this session for today. And before we all go, I would like to take a minute to look inside of ourselves and also at our teams and think for a minute about one thing. What can be the main takeaway for today? Something that we can walk away with after our discussion.